Russia's defense ministry says its forces are taking part in the battle for Solidar, a town north of Bakhmut in East Ukraine, which has been the focus of recent fighting. It comes after the head of Russia's notoriously brutal Wagner mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, claimed his fighters were in full control and boasted that only his troops took part. Mr. Prigozhin will most likely use any victory to bolster the reputation of Wagner as an effective fighting force in the eyes of President Vladimir Putin. But the Russian Defense Ministry appeared to contradict the controversial oligarch's claims. Spokesperson Igor Konashenkov said in the military daily update, the Solidar has been blockaded from the north and the south by units of the Russian airborne forces. Meanwhile, rockets hit Kharkiv in Ukraine earlier on Tuesday, setting fireworks on a warehouse ablaze. According to local officials, there's been no casualties reported, but Kharkiv Emergency Services released this video showing firemen extinguishing a fire at the fireworks warehouse. You see the fireworks still going off as they try to put out the fire. The location, of course, has not been determined, but the building characteristics and the factory logo seen in the video match the file and satellite imagery of the area where this could be happening, which is in Kharkiv. One official said, as you see, there are no warehouses of ammunition or other military equipment. It is a completely civilian enterprise in the area. And President Vladimir Putin says the situation in areas already annexed by Russia is quite alarming. Speaking in a televised meeting with officials, the president said Russia had all the resources it needs to improve life in the 4 Ukrainian regions that Moscow unilaterally claimed to have annexed in September last year. In his words, I'm outlining that we guarantee the safety and interests of the country, will improve our defense. Without doubt, we will solve all the issues related to provision of our military forces, units involved in special military operation. At the same time, we will continue to implement major social, economic programs and plans aimed at increasing well-being of people, fulfilling huge potential of Russia, expanding our international ties. We have all the sources for this without doubt. President Putin's words. His Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, was busy paying respects to soldiers buried at the cemetery during his visit to the western city of Lviv. President Zelensky, together with Lviv officials and head of his staff, Andriy Yermak, took part in a ceremony honoring the memory of Ukrainian soldiers killed in battle following Russia's invasion in February last year. Later, he held a meeting with military commanders where he discussed border protection and the security situation in northwestern Ukraine. He said Ukraine must be ready at its border with Russian ally Belarus, even though it sees only powerful statements coming from its neighbor. Kyiv has warned that Russia may try to use Belarus to launch a new ground invasion of Ukraine from the north. Zelensky made the reference to such warnings in comments on the Telegram messaging app after taking part in what he described as a coordination meeting on security matters in the Lviv region. Meanwhile, a large number of U.S. Army tanks and military vehicles have begun arriving at the Dutch port of Vlissingen ahead of their transport to Poland and Lithuania later this year as part of moves to strengthen NATO's eastern flank. Equipment includes large numbers of M1 Abrams tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles from the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 1st Cavalry Division of Fort Hood, Texas. Dutch armed forces are helping with marine security and guarding the port area where the vehicles will be housed before they continue east.
Here in this location in Vlissingen, there's about 1,250 pieces of military equipment coming into this port. We've got a couple other ports that we're using across Europe as well, but for this operation here, it's the largest of the three, and it's got a lot of the tanks and tracked vehicles coming for this brigade. So we're very excited about this operation.
Ukrainian Human Rights Commissioner Dmitry Lubinets says no official agreements have been signed following a meeting with his Russian counterpart Tatiana Moskalova in Turkey's capital, Ankara. Lubinets said the talks had resulted in an agreement on exchanging 40 prisoners of war as part of a broader arrangement by both sides which regularly exchange prisoners. Moskalova and Lubinets were meeting on the sidelines of an international ombudsman conference in Ankara. Our photos show them sitting on opposite sides of a table.
We will not sign any agreements, but we have the straight connection between Ukraine Ombudsman and Ombudsman of Russian Federation. This is discussion, but I suppose that after this discussion we will have a results. And these results is not official documents. The results is returning Ukrainian citizens to their families, to their children.
And Russia says it's making progress in military operations around the small salt mining town of Solidar in eastern Ukraine and has a positive momentum. He acknowledges, however, there's suffering of casualties by the Russian troops. Asked about the situation on the ground, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says let's not rush, let's wait for official statements. There's a positive dynamic in progress. Ukraine said earlier its forces were holding out. Ukrainian military's morning summary made one mention of Solidar, listing it as one of several towns being shelled in East Ukraine's Donetsk region. Solidar lies around 7 kilometers northeast of Bakhmut, which Russia has been attempting to capture for months, in fierce fighting led by the Wagner mercenary group. Mr. Peskov acknowledged the high cost of operation in terms of soldiers' lives.